The officer thought it would be just another rainy night on patrol. A loyal German shepherd, weak and alone, lay trembling on the cold ground, her belly heavy with new life. He rushed her to the nearest clinic, believing doctors could help her deliver safely. Everything seemed under control as the vet prepared with steady hands, expecting a normal birth. But moments later, as the puppies arrived one after another, the vet's expression changed instantly. His skin turned pale, his jaw tightened, and panic flickered through his eyes. Something was terribly wrong. Something no one in the room had ever witnessed before. Even the officer's heart hammered harder, dread creeping into every corner of the room. What had this stray dog given birth to? And why did the vet suddenly look so terrified? What happened next left everyone speechless. A shocking turn that no one could have predicted. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories. And tell us, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. I love seeing how far our stories travel. A cold drizzle misted over Asheville, North Carolina, and the air smelled of wet pines and distant mountains. Officer Jack Carter, a 35-year-old white American man with a lean but muscular build, drove slowly through the winding road near the edge of the Blue Ridge Parkway. His hazel eyes, sharp and vigilant, reflected years of experience, both triumph and trauma, etched quietly in the angles of his clean-shaven jaw. Jack was the kind of man who carried his duty like armor, a steady voice, calm mind, and a heart that had learned too many times what it meant to lose. The silent patrol offered him rare moments of peace, yet he never let the silence fool him. Danger often arrived wrapped in quiet. Rain tapped lightly against his patrol car as he passed an abandoned parking lot where weeds cracked the pavement. Normally, he would drive by without a second glance, until headlights caught a flicker of movement near a rusted dumpster. Jack slowed. Something small? Injured? Instinct tightened his chest. He stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the wet gravel, hand resting gently on his belt, not because he expected a threat, but because training never allowed him to approach the unknown unprepared. There, under the dim street lamp, lay a German shepherd. She was a large adult female, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, her once majestic black and tan coat now slicked to her ribs with rain and dirt. Her belly was swollen with unmistakable pregnancy, contracting slightly in uneven waves. Her ears drooped low, eyes, warm amber but clouded with exhaustion, flicked up at Jack. She was terrified but not aggressive. No snarl, no teeth, only a tremor and a pleading look, as though begging him not to walk away. A faded collar hung loosely around her neck, scratched metal tag bearing one word: Luna. Jack crouched slowly, lowering his voice to a gentle tone he rarely used. "Hey, sweetheart, I've got you." His hand extended, palm open. Luna sniffed weakly, then lay still, trusting because she no longer had the strength not to. Her breathing rattled, the stress of labor building with nowhere safe to go. Jack, of all people, knew that fear, the feeling of life slipping too fast. He thought of Max, his former K9 partner, a powerful and loyal German shepherd just like Luna. Max had taken a bullet meant for Jack during a domestic hostage standoff 2 years ago. Jack relived that moment in flashes sometimes. The gunshot, Max collapsing, Jack's scream caught behind clenched teeth. Losing Max shattered a part of him, locking away a well of guilt he never allowed others to see. Now, staring at Luna, he felt the wound reopen, raw and relentless. Rain intensified, urging him to move. He slid his arms beneath Luna, surprised at how light she felt, despite the weight of her unborn litter. Luna whimpered but didn't resist. Jack wrapped his patrol jacket around her for warmth, holding her close against his chest. He could feel her shivering breath, rapid and struggling, as though every second counted. He carried her to the car, lowering her gently into the back seat with the care one would give a child. Each contraction forced a cry from Luna that made Jack's heart kick harder. He clenched the steering wheel, voice steady but urgent. "Hang in there. I'm not letting you go." Blue lights flashed to life, not for a crime, but for a race against time. The Blue Ridge Animal Clinic was the only emergency veterinary center open at that hour, a small brick building with soft yellow lights glowing through rain-blotted windows. Jack rushed in carrying Luna, calling out for help. The scent of antiseptic and clean floors greeted him as Dr. Emily Harris emerged from behind the counter with calm confidence. Emily, a white American woman in her early 40s, stood around 5'7" with chestnut brown hair tied in a neat bun. Her eyes were a soothing steel blue, sharp enough to catch danger, kind enough to soften fear. She was known for her steady hands and unwavering compassion, shaped partly by losing patients she cared for too deeply in her early career. That loss taught her to fight harder for every life now. Behind her, veterinary technician Megan Scott, a slim young white woman around 28 with freckles scattered across her pale cheeks and short blonde hair tucked under a scrub cap, hurried over with a stretcher. Megan was empathetic to a fault. She rescued stray cats in her spare time and cried over every emergency case, but she never let tears stop her from doing the work that mattered. Emily examined Luna quickly, brows knitting with concern. "She's in active labor, but her vitals are weak. This is going to be a difficult delivery." Jack nodded, jaw tight, his voice low but full of quiet fear. "Just tell me what you need." Emily met his eyes and saw the weight he carried. Grief buried under duty. She placed a hand briefly on his shoulder, grounding him. "We'll do everything we can. She's a fighter. I can see it." Jack stood beside Luna's table, fingers gently brushing her ear. She leaned into his touch, trusting him not because he was a cop, but because he cared. In that moment, Jack felt a vow form silently in his chest. He would not let history repeat itself. He would not lose another dog tonight. As thunder murmured distantly outside, Luna let out another strained cry, and Jack felt his heart hammer with both hope and fear. The storm inside the clinic had only begun, and already it felt like the outcome would change more than just the fate of one abandoned dog. He whispered again, steady and certain, "I'm right here, girl. You're not alone." The chapter ends here, exactly within the summarized content. The storm outside softened into a steady patter, but inside the Blue Ridge Animal Clinic, tension thickened with each strained breath Luna took. Officer Jack Carter stood near the examination table, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hands steady though his heart raced. He had faced armed gunmen without flinching, but witnessing a fragile life struggle pulled fear from the deepest part of him. Dr. Emily Harris prepared her tools, gloves snapped tight, sterile trays arranged with precise order. Her steel blue eyes watched Luna's breathing, noting how her ribs expanded too sharply and how her contractions weakened instead of strengthening. "She's losing energy," Emily murmured, voice tight. "We can't wait for nature to do this alone." Megan Scott, the blonde veterinary technician with soft gray eyes, rushed to warm towels beneath heat lamps. Her compassion made her hands tremble when she looked at Luna's belly again, tightening painfully. Megan had always been easily attached to animals, especially rescues. Her parents used to say she had a heart too big for the world. But tonight, she embraced that vulnerability, turning it into a fierce need to help. Emily nodded once, the unspoken plan clear. Assist the birth manually. Jack swallowed hard and stepped closer, offering his strength. He whispered to Luna, "Stay with us, I'm right here," as her trembling paws pressed weakly against the cold metal table. Luna's amber eyes flickered, not with fear this time, but with trust. That quiet bravery reignited a fire in Jack that he thought had died with Max. A sudden cry, sharp, desperate, signaled a pup arriving. Emily guided the newborn out, then quickly handed the small, slick body to Megan. The puppy's fur was patchy, its limbs too thin, its breathing faint, as if each inhale decided whether it wanted to stay in this world. Megan rubbed the pup vigorously, muttering encouragement like a prayer stitched with desperation. A squeak, barely there, but alive, made Jack exhale a breath he didn't know he was holding. Emily didn't pause. Another contraction, another life rushed into the room. The second pup emerged smaller, its chest rising unevenly. "Come on, fight," Jack urged under his breath. His pulse hammered with each fragile movement. The room became a world measured only in heartbeats and shallow breaths. Time blurred. Another pup, then another. Emily paused briefly when Luna's body tensed too long without result. Her brows pinched, worry forming again. "She's fading," Emily warned. Jack's heart clenched. He stepped to Luna's head, his warm hand against her cold fur, grounding her, anchoring himself. "You're strong, girl. You've come this far." Suddenly, the clinic door swung open with a gust of cold air, revealing Dr. Samuel Turner, Emily's backup vet on call tonight. He was a tall, broad-shouldered white American man in his late 40s, sandy blonde hair faintly graying, jaw dusted with scruff, from being woken unexpectedly. He had intense green eyes that often appeared stern, a result of years in emergency medicine where mistakes cost lives. Samuel rarely allowed emotion to interfere. After losing a critical surgery case early in his career, he built walls to survive the guilt. "Status?" he asked sharply, sliding into gloves. Emily responded succinctly. "Weak labor, underdeveloped pups, mother exhausted, risk of collapse high." He nodded once, moving beside her with practiced precision. "We finished strong, then." Under his guidance, the next delivery came faster. The pup squealed louder than the others. Small, yes, but fiery. Jack actually smiled. "A fighter," he whispered. Though one birth brought hope, Luna suddenly let out a haunting cry, her body shaking uncontrollably. Her breaths came shallow, eyes fluttering. Panic surged in Jack's chest like lightning. Emily pressed oxygen over Luna's muzzle. "Stay with us," she urged. Samuel monitored vitals, voice firm. "Her heart's struggling." Jack's mind flashed back. Max on the ground, sirens blurring, his hands helpless over a dying friend. Not again, not tonight. He placed both hands on Luna, as though human strength could will her to live. "Don't leave them," he whispered fiercely. "Don't leave me." Luna released a faint whine, but her chest kept rising, weak, uneven, but rising. Hours seemed compacted into moments before the storm inside the clinic quieted. 6 puppies lay bundled in warm towels, breaths fragile but present. Luna's eyes remained half open, tired but anchored to Jack's presence. No cheers, no celebration. Just the raw, trembling relief of survivors. The chapter ends here, exactly within the summarized content. Morning light filtered weakly through the clinic windows, painting pale bands across the sterile floor. Inside, the Blue Ridge Animal Clinic remained tense but quieter. Jack Carter had not slept. Exhaustion clung to his shoulders, but he stayed standing, one hand resting on Luna's back, as if his touch alone could tether her to strength. Luna's eyes opened occasionally, filled with fatigue yet anchored to the presence of the man who refused to leave her side. Her 6 puppies, tiny bundles wrapped in warm towels, breathed with unsteady persistence beneath the heat lamps. Each rise and fall of their chests felt like a fragile promise. Emily Harris, her brown hair messily pinned and dark circles shadowing her steel blue eyes, double-checked the pup's temperatures and Luna's IV fluids. Emily was meticulous, someone who carried responsibility like a burden she willingly chose every day. At the far side, Dr. Samuel Turner charted vitals with calculated precision, jaw clenched. He was calmer in emergencies than after them. Reflection always reminded him of lives he once couldn't save. So he lingered in action as long as he could. Megan Scott, her blonde pixie cut slightly frizzed with the stress of the night, organized syringes and disinfectants, fighting to keep her emotions from spiraling. She murmured soft encouragements every time a puppy twitched or squeaked, afraid silence meant the worst. Just when the room finally exhaled, a sudden murmur from outside broke the fragile calm. Jack glanced toward the front window, noticing silhouettes gathering. Curious faces pressed against the glass, hands cupped around wide eyes. Word had spread faster than dawn. Asheville was small, and stories, born in the dark, easily twisted into mysteries by morning. Emily frowned. Samuel's irritation flared into a scowl. Megan shrank under the weight of attention. Jack stepped toward the lobby, boots thudding with controlled frustration. When he opened the door, cool morning air rushed in along with a swirl of voices. Front and center stood Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, a slender, elderly white woman around 72, with neatly curled silver hair and a floral raincoat too bright for the somber morning. Her pale blue eyes sparkled with worry and judgment alike. She was the type who cared deeply but let fear shape her words. Beside her stood her husband, Frank Brooks, a stout man in his mid-70s with a weathered face, gray beard trimmed short, and suspicious eyes that missed nothing. Frank had been a construction foreman all his life, one who believed danger hid in anything unfamiliar. Eleanor spoke first, voice trembling but loud enough for everyone behind her to hear. "Officer, people are saying the puppies look wrong. Is it true something unnatural happened?" Gasps fluttered like startled birds among the crowd. Fathers, mothers, teenagers in hoodies recording with phones, all hungry for a story. Jack kept his posture square, steady authority radiating from him. "There's nothing unnatural here," he said firmly. "A dog needed help, that's all." Frank stepped forward, arms crossed over his thick chest. "Dogs don't give birth to sickly creatures unless something's messed with them. Chemicals, experiments." His gaze narrowed at Jack. "You sure you're not hiding something from us?" Jack's jaw tensed. He had dealt with panic before, but panic combined with ignorance could turn into cruelty. "What I'm sure of," he replied tightly, "is that speculation helps no one. Not Luna, not her puppies." A thin, nervous young man in the crowd raised his phone higher, recording. Kevin Miller, about 21, tall but lanky with messy brown curls, always chasing online attention as fame he couldn't find in his real life. "People online will want to know," Kevin muttered, half thrilled, half scared. Jack stepped closer, his voice low but commanding. "Turn that off. These animals deserve dignity, not rumors." Kevin flushed and lowered his phone, though not willingly. Eleanor's expression softened as she peered past Jack, seeing Luna's dim outline through the window. "Poor thing," she whispered, her fear dissolving into tenderness. "She looks like she's been through so much." Jack took that sliver of humanity and held on to it. "She has, and she's still fighting. So let's give her peace to heal instead of adding more fear." He expected pushback from Frank, but instead the older man's sternness wavered, replaced with something like reluctant respect. He gave Jack a curt nod before turning his protective stare toward his wife instead of the clinic. Jack returned inside and closed the door, shutting out the murmur of fearful imaginations. His heart thudded as he leaned back against the door. Crowds always reminded him how quickly truth could drown beneath noise. Emily approached, offering a small but warm smile. "Handled well," she said quietly. Jack exhaled, gaze drifting to Luna. "People are scared of what they don't understand," he murmured. "We just have to hope they don't make this harder for her." Samuel looked up from the chart, voice clipped yet sincere. "They'll follow your lead. Just keep control." Jack nodded, though control felt flimsy when depending entirely on fragile breaths of a recovering mother and her newborn litter. Luna let out a weak but content sound as Jack returned to her side. He stroked her head gently, grounding himself in the simple truth. She trusted him, and her puppies, so breakable they barely seemed ready for this world, were counting on him too. Outside, whispers still fluttered against the glass like restless wings. Inside, Jack vowed silently that fear would not claim this story, not while he still stood watch. The chapter ends here, exactly within the summarized content. Night quietly returned to Asheville, the clinic's soft lights standing alone against the growing darkness outside. The crowd had thinned after Jack's firm intervention, though a few lingering silhouettes still hovered near the parking lot, curiosity refusing to fully disappear. Inside, however, the real battle continued, silent, fragile, and painfully personal. Jack Carter stood watch beside Luna and her pups, exhaustion weighing heavily in the slump of his shoulders. Yet his hazel eyes remained alert, unwavering, as if sleep itself was a privilege he refused to take while any life here hovered uncertain. Luna had regained a bit of warmth, but her breaths were still slow and uneven. Her 6 newborn puppies lay bundled beneath gently glowing heat lamps, tiny bodies clinging to the promise of surviving one more hour. Dr. Emily Harris, hair messily pinned and posture straight despite fatigue, checked vitals with focused calm. She pressed a stethoscope to each tiny chest, listening for the faint drumbeat that meant hope still lived. Meanwhile, Megan Scott gently rubbed one of the smallest puppies, coaxing every breath with patient fingertips. Her freckled cheeks were flushed from stress, but her eyes shone with a fierce protectiveness that had only grown stronger since last night. Across the room, Dr. Samuel Turner updated charts with meticulous detail, his stern, green eyes narrowing whenever a number dipped into dangerous territory. He believed in statistics, in medical science, but even he had started whispering small encouragements as he worked, a habit he pretended not to have. Then it happened. The weakest puppy, A tiny male with a thin white streak running along his muzzle stopped breathing. Megan's fingers froze. "Emily, he's not responding." Panic cracked through her voice. In an instant, Emily swooped in. She worked with practiced speed, massaging the pup's chest gently but firmly. Samuel moved beside her, preparing oxygen, while Megan whispered, "Come on, little boy. Keep fighting." Jack stood motionless at first, fear striking him like a bullet he couldn't outrun. Memories slammed into him. Max gasping in his arms, the sharp scent of gunpowder. His desperate cries swallowed the sirens. He felt his chest collapse inward, breath trapped beneath trauma he still hadn't outrun. Not again. Not while I'm here. He stepped forward, voice hoarse but steady. "Tell me what to do." Emily only glanced his way, quickly assessing. "Hold Luna. Keep her calm. If she panics, her vitals will drop further." Jack knelt beside Luna as she shifted anxiously, sensing danger, her trembling nose pushed toward the struggling pup, instincts pleading to intervene. Jack placed a careful hand on her head, grounding her. I know he's fighting. Stay with him, just like you did all night." Luna let out a low, heartbreaking whimper. Emily breathed quicker now, pressing tiny compressions with delicate precision. Seconds stretched cruelly. The clock's ticking seemed loud enough to drown hope. "Come on, breathe," Samuel muttered, his voice a rare crack in his armor. Nothing. Megan's eyes flooded, tears clinging to her lashes. "Please," she whispered, "don't let go." Then, a faint squeak, barely audible, but alive. Megan gasped, covering her mouth in relief. Emily exhaled deeply, shoulders sagging. Samuel checked the oxygen level, his jaw unclenching ever so slightly. Jack hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath until Luna nudged his hand, as if thanking him for not giving up. "He's not in the clear," Emily warned softly, "but he's here." Jack nodded. "That's enough," he murmured. "We'll take every second we get." Megan wrapped the tiny survivor in a warm towel and placed him back with the others. Luna licked his head weakly, motherly instinct igniting through exhaustion. Jack brushed her ear and said quietly, "He's tougher than he looks, just like his mom." The tension eased, but no one dared believe the danger had passed. The night still held many hours, each one a test. Yet something had shifted, a fragile but undeniable spark of triumph. Emily looked around the room, voice steady again. "We keep going. They're fighting. So do we." Jack stood, stretching his tired muscles, ready to guard again. Out the window, distant shadows lingered, but inside, courage burned brighter. As Luna rested her head against Jack's knee, he realized something profound. Saving these puppies might just be saving him too. The chapter ends here, exactly within the summarized content. Dawn climbed gently over Asheville, painting the mountains in soft blush and gold. Inside the Blue Ridge Animal Clinic, the harshness of the night before seemed to melt beneath the first warm rays of sunlight. The steady rhythm of tiny breaths, once uncertain, now filled the room with the fragile but undeniable music of survival. Officer Jack Carter stretched his aching back, feeling every hour of lost sleep but unable to stop the small smile tugging at his lips. Luna, though exhausted, was awake and watching her puppies with calm pride in her amber eyes. Her fur still needed care, and her body still trembled from weakness, but something stronger glowed beneath the fatigue. Victory. The smallest puppy, the little boy with the white streak across his muzzle, nuzzled against his mother's belly and latched on to Nurse with unexpected determination. Jack let out a soft laugh. "You're not giving up on anything, are you?" he murmured. Luna flicked her ear as if agreeing. None of them would. The clinic door chimed quietly as Sarah Bennett stepped inside. Sarah was a kind-faced white American woman in her late 30s, with wavy chestnut hair that fell loosely over her shoulders and a light dusting of freckles across her fair cheeks. She worked as a teacher at the local elementary school and was known for a gentle, patient nature, one shaped by years of helping children who needed extra reassurance. Sarah carried a box in her arms, the sweet aroma of muffins sneaking through the cardboard. She had heard whispers of what happened and, instead of fear, chose kindness. "I thought everyone might need a little breakfast," she said softly. Jack blinked as if surprised someone would think of them at a moment like this. "Thank you," he replied, voice warm but raspy with fatigue. Sarah stepped closer to the puppy enclosure, eyes widening at the sight of 6 tiny lives bundled together. "Oh my goodness," she breathed. "They're beautiful." Unlike the crowd from yesterday, there was no judgment in her voice, only pure awe. Dr. Emily Harris joined them, the tired lines around her eyes softened now that the pups were stable. Megan Scott trailed behind, her blonde hair hastily brushed, but her smile bright with pride. Even Dr. Samuel Turner, the often stern presence, allowed a hint of relief to soften his rugged features. Sarah's gaze drifted to Jack. "I've never seen you at the school before. You must be new to Asheville." Jack nodded slightly. 6 months. Still finding my place here." He didn't mention that he'd come here to escape memories he couldn't fix, but somehow, staring at Luna and her puppies, he felt like he might be closer to belonging than he'd realized. A soft tapping at the front glass drew Jack's attention. Eleanor and Frank Brooks stood outside again, this time without fear clouding their expressions. Eleanor clutched a folded blanket in her hands, a quilt, handmade, with little paw prints stitched along the edges. Frank, rugged and stiff as always, held a bag of donated towels under one arm. They looked unsure of how to enter without disturbing anything, so Jack waved them inside. Eleanor stepped forward and placed the quilt near Luna. "She deserves comfort," she said gently. We might have misjudged things yesterday." Frank cleared his throat, eyes locked firmly on the floor to disguise any emotion. "Those pups made it through hell. Town owes them respect." Emily smiled as she placed the quilt under Luna's head. "Thank you," she told them. "They're going to have a fighting chance." Jack watched the shift happening right before him. Fear was fading, replaced by community. Rumors were losing ground to truth, and it all began with one abandoned dog and the people who refused to look away. The clinic door opened again. Chief Curtis Reed, Jack's superior officer, strode in with his usual upright posture. The chief was a tall, barrel-chested white man in his 50s, with graying hair and a strong presence that demanded attention. His deep-set blue eyes softened slightly at the sight of the tiny family. "Carter," he began, voice gruff but approving, "the department heard what you did. You kept a life alive, several lives." Jack shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "I just did what needed to be done." "No," Chief Reed corrected, folding his arms proudly. "You went beyond duty." He lowered his voice with sincerity. "We'd like to sponsor Luna as an honorary K9. When she's recovered, she'll have a place with us. And those pups," he smirked, "looks like they won't have trouble finding homes." A quiet warmth spread through Jack's chest. He rested a hand gently on Luna's neck. "Hear that, girl? You're part of the team now." Megan giggled through happy tears. Emily wiped the corner of her eye quickly, pretending dust had caused it. Even Samuel cracked a small smile, a victory he couldn't chalk up to medicine alone. As Luna curled protectively around her puppies, the room glowed with something almost sacred. A story, once born in shadows and whispers, had evolved into proof of hope, loud and clear. Jack glanced toward the window. Outside, Asheville was waking, unaware that inside this little clinic a new story was starting, one about healing, courage, and unexpected family. He knelt beside Luna with a steady whisper, "You're safe now, all of you, and from here on, none of us fight alone." The chapter ends here, exactly within the summarized content. Sometimes God sends his miracles in fur and fragile breaths. Through Luna and her puppies, we're reminded that even the weakest among us deserve love, hope, and a fighting chance. May we carry that lesson into our own lives, to help those who cannot speak, to protect those who cannot defend themselves, and to trust that God is always working in the quietest moments. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Your voice helps spread kindness. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of faith and second chances. May God bless you and your loved ones today and always.